YouTube live. But anyway, welcome to the stream. Today we're going to be talking about my entire content creation process. And I've talked to quite a few creators who still struggle and are still experimenting to find a system that works really well for them. And so what I want this live video to be in this YouTube video is a simple suggestion as to something that you could use if you're feeling lost, or, you could either follow it to a T if you want, you could steal this essentially, or you could use it as a brainstorming session for yourself to help create a better process so that it's easier for you to understand, okay, this is what I need to do and this is how I can repurpose my content. So my particular structure is built simply on being able to multiply content, repurpose that content in many different forms, and do it in a way that works best for me and my process. I'll show you how you can make it work best for you. There's three main paths that I think are probably best, and then you just reverse engineer it based on that approach. This approach works best for me in my style, so don't think that you have to do it this exact same way, but again, steal it if you think that will work best for you. So I think probably the best thing that we can do first is just do like we'll go to Canva, where I have a graphic that I made that was simply that I simply made to help me understand this, and ended up being something that I thought was pretty useful. So that's a little big. Let's try minimizing that a little bit more, and then moving that, and then I'll move my head a little bit here. All right, so hopefully you can see that a little bit better. I'll zoom in a little bit more. The presenting tab wasn't really that useful. Let's try that again. Present. Enter full screen mode. It's not picking it up. Okay. This is not what I wanted. That's okay. All right, let's go back to the graphic. Hopefully this is easy enough for you to see. So essentially here what we have is a top to bottom graph of explaining everything that it's broken down to, essentially. So at the very top, you have an article or a blog post. This is what I have found to be the best method for me, and I'll explain why I also think it's the best method overall. And that's because when you have an article or a blog post, you're kind of doing three different things that are going to aid with creating short form video content and long form video and audio content. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're obviously going to create a headline for your blog. You're going to write everything out. You're going to have this structure and these steps, and that's going to benefit you immensely because you can repurpose all of that information very easily and not have to do anything specific in order to repurpose that content. You're not going to have to reinvent the wheel. You're not going to have to reinvent the topic or the title or the captions even. What you can do is write that blog post, and then from that you'll get captions for your images, or you'll get captions for your posts, your video posts. You'll get hooks, right? Because anytime you're starting off a sentence in a paragraph, you're trying to find some sort of way to create curiosity and interest and ask questions. So you have hooks that you can pre-design, and then you have titles for your YouTube videos, your podcast episodes, whatever you decide to do. You don't have to do all of this by any means. But you can use this as a good place to understand, okay, if I want to turn my blog post into a long form piece of content, I can do it this way. And then if I want to chop that up and put it into short form pieces of content, I can do it this way. So it becomes a very useful step for yourself when you are trying to, make it the best possible thing that you can. And so it's a pretty cool little process that I think that you can use. So anyway, blog post, and then short form content can turn into TikTok Reels and Shorts, new email newsletter. If you decide to go that route, maybe you're not doing all of this yet, but again, it doesn't matter. Wherever you're starting off, just start with that. And then you can turn your short form written content into tweets, Facebook posts, and LinkedIn posts. And if you have a schedule, which I'll show you my scheduler that I use as a part of my subscription to the Adobe Creative Cloud, you can schedule those posts as a part of your subscription. So you don't have to pay for an additional service. Your hooks are going to benefit your short form video content and your long form video or podcast content. Your titles can be the title. Once you have a blog post title, that could be your podcast title, that could be your YouTube video title. The beauty in writing a really good title is that you can put it in anything else that you create, and it will be just as beneficial. And then when you have a long form article, you can turn that into a podcast episode. You could, if you make courses or tutorials, you can make that as a part or a chapter in your long form course or tutorial. And then obviously YouTube videos, right? You could essentially use podcasts and YouTube videos interchangeably because they're essentially dealing with the same form of content. So as you can see here, writing a blog post article at the very top can be the best trickle-down effect and really show you how you can multiply all your different pieces of content. Now, let's say that you're not much of a writer. Let's say you don't have a blog. Let's say you don't want to write, right? You don't want to write these full-fledged, blog pieces. That's totally fine. You could take a YouTube video and place it here at the top and do this almost in reverse because you have that YouTube video, right? And then you place that YouTube video, let's say you place the audio into something like Descript, where you can transcribe all of that audio, and that becomes a blog post for yourself. So obviously with a little bit of editing and some, formatting, it turns into a blog post. So it can be reverse engineered. Same goes with a podcast. Podcast is at the top. You transcribe that creates a blog post for you. That transcription could then be getting used for captions, hooks, titles. So you don't necessarily have to start with writing. That's what I prefer to do because it's easier for me to sit down and write an entire blog post probably in an hour and then go from there and find ways to repurpose it. So again, I don't want you to feel like you have to do it the writing article way, but that's what I prefer. At the end of the day, you're still going to need something that's in written format if you really want to maximize the repurpose ability, which is not yet a word, but I am going to make it a word. And maybe at one day I'll contact Webster's Dictionary and say, hey, you got to add this. Lots of creators are using it. All right. So very cool. So once we understand that, let's dive into the actual content process. So I'm going to go over to my Google Doc here. Just make sure this is picking it up. Let's move the camera back over. Whoops. Let's move the camera back over here so it's out of the way of the content. All right, very cool. Okay, so this is this is a template. It's just a simple template that I've created to repurpose this type of format. But we're going to go to step number 1, which is the brain dump file. So this is what I call my brain dump file. It's kind of my coined phrase. And if we're zooming in, if I can zoom in on this. Oh, hold on. Let's zoom in a little bit. Let's go 150. So as you can see here, this is my idea column. So these are just ideas. Some of them start off as titles and become more titles, like are more fleshed out titles. Some of them are keyword research that I do. Some of it is just simple ideas I have from reading or watching other pieces of content. But this is my brain dump file. So for example, what to do when you don't know what to make content, what kind of content to make, what are you supposed to do? There's an idea for a blog post. How to write a awesome mobile-friendly blog post. That came as an idea because I was reading a blog post on my phone and it was formatted terribly, and I was like, perfect, I'll make a blog post on how to do that. How to deal with creator burnout. I actually just recently came up with that one. I can check that one off. My complete content creation strategy. That's what I'm doing right now. Feeling lost in content creation process. So you get the idea. It could be anything that you want. It's just the idea you came up with. It's not anything that's been fleshed out specifically. It's not a super rock solid idea. It's just you had an idea, you don't want to lose it, you put it in this column. And then after that, what I do is I'll come over to my working title. So I got one of these ideas, and I'm going to go to a website right now that I use to help me build headlines. So this is called, let's zoom up a little bit. Is this too far zoomed in? No, this is fine. So I'll move my my camera a little bit. So this is called a headline generator. So what you do is you essentially put your headline here, and I start off with a very basic and pretty crappy headline, right? So how to make 1,000, whoops. I switched scenes because that's my switch scene button. My bad. There we go. So how to make 1,000 pieces of content in 2 hours, right? Then I'm going to hit analyze. This is completely free, by the way, once you sign up. And it's going to give me a grade out of 100. So 67, not a very good grade. It helps break it down for me right here. So you have all these different categories that it's ranking it off of, and we'll go over each one very briefly here. But as you can see, my word balance, not that great. I've got quite a few common words, just a few uncommon words, just one emotional word, and no power words. And so this analyzer, which is created by coschedule.com, it's called the Headliner Headline Studio. This is the free version. You can pay for it, but I don't think it's worth paying for. I think you can get everything you need for free. And it's saying, okay, this could be a better headline. Let's make a better headline. So you can look at how it's grading you, and I'll let you discover this for yourself. But there's a lot of different grades: total word count, character count, what kind of style of headline is it? What's the reading grade level? What is the sentiment? Is it neutral, positive, negative? Clarity, is it easy to read? Is it clear to understand what's going on? And then skimmability, kind of just, I don't really follow that one too easily. But anyway, this is a score. So if I wanted to improve the score, what I'm typically going to have to do is change this word balance a little bit. I don't pay so much attention to sentiment or anything like that. It's mostly word count and that sort of thing. And I usually won't even use the headline unless it's somewhere in the 75 to 80 range. I've only had one headline that was like a 94. And I don't obsess about this. I just want to make sure I'm writing a headline that is interesting, enticing, and cool to listen to, cool to read. Piques the curiosity. That's the most important part. So once I'm done with that, I go back to my content database and I add it to here. And I don't even record the video at that point. Some days I simply just I look at my ideas and I go, okay, let's create some headlines for these ideas. And I save those headlines here. And then when I'm ready to go back, I can go, okay, well, I already did that one. Let's do low views getting you down, blah, blah, blah. Let's create this post. And so I take that headline and I bring it over to my Google Doc here. So let's actually go back to Google Docs and go to my written. And I write everything in Google Docs first, and then I copy it over to a different blog post that's more search friendly. So this is where I write all my blog posts. I don't do a lot of heavy editing. I mean, I obviously want the blog post to be good, but I'm more focused on consistency and volume of content right now. So if it's good enough, it gets posted, and then we go from there. So anyway, I write everything here in this Google Doc. And then from that Google Doc, I post it to my Medium account, which is sort of like a very casual, free blog that you can use. I'm not really interested in paying for a blog right now. I don't want to pay for the hosting. I don't want to pay for the domain. I don't want to do all that. I've done that before. It's a pain in the ass. So when I'm ready to do that, I will, but that's why I save it in a Google Doc so that when I'm ready to actually post it on my own website, I still have it, and Medium doesn't have the only copy. So anyway, let's go to my stories. You'll see I have 8 published stories. If we go to my profile, which we can view right now, you can see these are all my stories. And I really like the Medium layout. It looks great on mobile. It looks great on desktop. And again, just a blog, right? This is my blog post. I add some pictures here for context. I'll add things like, some calls to action for my podcast. I always put a call to action at the end. Just say, hey, come check out my podcast if you want to take me on the go, so to speak. All right, and so that's essentially the written format of my content. So then going back to my content database, we go from sort of the brain dump file where we formulate all the beginning stages of the written article, and then we go to my short form content script. So this is for my Reels, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok videos. Most of the time, my video gets posted on TikTok, and then I repurpose it to YouTube Shorts and Reels. I found that I have the most success on TikTok and YouTube Reels. Instagram is sort of, I'm just posting there for the sake of it, just in case, Instagram decides to one day get their shit together. But for the most part, I just post there because it's easy to. It doesn't take a whole lot of extra work. But anyway, what I do here is from my blog post article, I'll look at a couple paragraphs, a couple sentences. I'll look for something that I can flesh out of that long piece of content and turn to a short form piece of content. And I write a script. I never follow my script 100% because I just don't write the same way I talk. I try to, but it doesn't usually come out perfectly. So what I essentially try to do every single time is come up with some sort of keyword. And I've got a keyword drop-down list, and I just continually add to it over time. My keywords are typically the ideas that I come up with or the ideas that I flesh out of research. And I forgot to go over some of the other ways I do research, but I'll go over those in a second. That way you have a kind of a clear idea of how that part works. But a lot of times I'll take my ideas from keywords just being on social media. So then once I have a keyword, let's say, creator burnout, boom. That is essentially how I come up with my ideas. So this is my keyword. That way I know front and center what it's going to be. I take the title from the blog post typically because I've already written that blog post at that time. And then I come up with a hook. And sometimes the hook is a sentence that I've come up with in my blog post article. Sometimes it's the idea for my blog post article, and then I create a hook out of that. I have a list of hooks, so I'll show you that really quick. Jumping around a little bit here, but I want to make sure you know what's going on. So I have a list of hooks in my database, which I can use anytime I want to, and there is currently about 60 or so hooks. So I'll just look at this and I'll go, you know what, that one fits really well. Stop scrolling if you want to learn more about content creation strategy, right? Boom, there's a hook. I don't overthink this too much. I don't try to make my hooks absolutely 100% perfect. Because I've collected hooks over the months of doing, content creation in this particular format, I just pick one and I run with it, right? If it sounds good, I run with it. I don't think too much about it. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time making my hook, super crazy if I've already put the time in to do that. So then I'll go there, I'll put it in here, and then I'll take that general idea, which in this case is creator burnout real, and I will start creating what I would hope to be anywhere between 15 to 30 seconds worth of a script, which isn't a lot of lines. It's, in some cases, 4 lines at the most. They each take 5 seconds to say, 4 lines, boom, done. And I do my format, I don't have it written out here because I cleared this, but my format is basically hook, body of context or value, right? I just typically label it value for I'll put value piece here, value 1, right? There it goes, switching I got to figure out what that button is so that doesn't keep happening. Let's move my camera. So hook, value, and then CTA, right? So hook is get the person interested. Value is what the hook is talking about and what they came for. And then CTA is reminding them, hey, follow me. Here's my podcast. Here's a graph that you can download. Eventually it's going to be, here's my, if you want to subscribe to a newsletter and have this content sent to you, to your mailbox, come here. CTA could be anything. It doesn't even have to be that crazy. I've even said, don't follow me. It's not worth it, just to see what people would do. And I've got a couple follows from that actually, which was a lot of fun just to test that out. So anyway, this is my short form content script. And I don't use this every single time. I don't wait for this to be completely filled out because I have this formula in my head essentially. But if I'm creating a sit down piece of content, I want to get some ideas out there, this is what I do. I format it here. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And then for long form content, I have a tracker here. So this tracker basically just says, here's my Medium profile, so I can tag that. Headlines, we already talked about that. Sometimes I'll use Hemingway, although I've found that Hemingway sometimes is so critical that if I was going to use it to exactly how it's designed to be used, I'd be rewriting my content every single day, and it's not that serious. I use it to help give me a general path, like, hey, does this sound terrible? Okay, I'll edit it. But if it sounds good and it reads well, I just post it. And then copywriting tool, I was using this for a little while to kind of see how to write better stuff. It turns out that after a certain amount of uses in a month, you have to pay. Not interested in paying. Don't have the budget to just throw money towards something I could do on my own. So anyway, once I'm done writing an article, I put it here. I put the headline and title. I have a number so I can keep track. And then I keep track of, which you can't actually see because the camera's in the way. Let me move the camera really quick. What is this stupid thing that's here? Okay, here we go. So then I have, did I write an article? Check. Did I do a podcast? Yes, no. And then I haven't done any YouTubes because I just don't have the time to do all 3. So I'm focusing on articles and podcasts. But as you can see, that's my tracking system, so I know exactly what's being created and, just go from there. So that's my long form piece of content tracker. Keeps me understanding what's going on. All right, let's move the camera back over here. Okay, so then from there, well, this isn't necessarily perfectly linear, but these are some of my brand content pillars. So I figured out I can't talk about everything under the sun. I need to focus on a couple of different things. So creator burnout's a big one. Where to start as a new content creator, because I work with a lot of people that want to be content creators but don't have a formulated system. Maybe they've been really focused on creating content consistently but don't have a system for it yet, so I talk to them a lot. Overcoming doubt and procrastination, imposter syndrome, things like that. I deal with that all the time. I still deal with it a lot of the time. And I've learned how to overcome it to a large degree and stay consistent. And then understanding social media algorithms, content posting tips, and best practices. So those are my 4 right now. This is never set in stone. Excuse me. basically what I do is I test things out, and the things that resonate the most with my audience, I keep, and the things that don't, I toss. I'm not married to any one thing. And then I have some brand goals, some things that I want to be able to do with my brand. And then I have some monetization goals, things like review products that I use and create and products that I love. One of my favorites is Rode equipment, Shure equipment, headphones, things like that. So those are my main focuses in terms of like content breakdown. Then I have my database. I kind of showed this already. These are my keywords, these are my hooks and pain points, very similar to like content pillars, that kind of stuff. And then when I'm writing headlines, they wanted me to pay for this, but I just found it online and copied it here on my my Google Drive. But essentially, these are all power words, words that entice emotion, and that's what you want on your headlines. So I have a whole library of this. When I have this more organized, this is something that I'm eventually going to make this shareable, so you can just use it. You don't have to do all this work yourself. Emotional words, again, used to really enhance and add flavor to your headlines. I find that I'll use power words more often than emotional words, but emotional words are still good to have. And then I have a hashtag database, which is really only for TikTok. I haven't updated this in a while either. Mostly because YouTube Shorts, I haven't found any specific hashtags that are like better to use than others. I don't think their hashtag system is as used or in depth as TikTok's. And then Instagram I don't even bother with because it's just an absolute crap show. And then for a little while I was tracking to see kind of what my best performing content is. It's pretty easy to tell right now, so I don't really update this that much. But yeah, that is my system, and that's essentially how I run my content creation system. I'm sure it could be polished a little bit more, but I am still fine-tuning this process. I think it's really strong, but I'm still fine-tuning it, and I probably always will. All right, so to end this live, I wanted to show you a little bit about what I do to do some research online. The things that I do to check my research online. So let's go to, I don't think I have this saved, but let's go to answerthepublic.com. So Answer the Public is one of my favorites. I don't use it all the time, but it's really fun to use. So let's put in content strategy. All right. It's best if you use 1 to 2 words. Makes the searches a little bit more easy for the system to create. And I don't personally like the visualization format, but you could use that if you want to. I use the data and I just read some of these. How to create content strategy for Instagram, how to improve content strategy, how to present content strategy, how to learn content strategy, right? Scrolling down. What's content strategy? What's content strategy do? Proposition forms, content strategy for social media, content strategy for website. So this gives you a whole bunch of keywords, and these are things that people are actually searching for. They're actually looking these words up, and I don't know if they're ranked from top to bottom in terms of most searched or not, but these are great examples for keywords, and I'll just spend 20 minutes during my content creation time looking at some of these and going, oh, why do I need a content strategy? Boom, there's a keyword. Let's go back to the content database, right? And let's add that as a keyword. Boom. And then I look at these keywords and I go back to my long form, or I go back to my my brain dump file. I'm like, okay, let's add it to the brain dump file, right? Boom. Can just populate it right there. So, yeah, it's that's the kind of system that I use for online. Typically, that's how I'll search. I'll also just do basic Google searches. So I'll just go Google, not Google, Google.com, right? Best content strategy for, and then there you go. Now, a lot of these are going to be on answerthepublic.com anyway, but if you wanted to type in for beginners, right? Boom. Best content strategy for beginner content creators. And then scroll past the ads. Ultimate guide to content creation. Boom. HubSpot's a great place for that. Content creation for beginners. How-to guide. Right? So you can do some research here just by clicking on, what Google thinks is the best stuff out there. And then you can go down here to the bottom. Here's a bunch of other ideas that are similar. content creation platforms, content creation for beginners PDF. Cool. How to create content for your brand, right? And then there's another keyword, and you can just keep doing research. So keywords aren't always something that are just going to be handed out. Sometimes it's stuff that you're going to do a little bit more digging with. So anyway, this is how I do all of my research, and what better place to do it than the spots that people are doing their searches for, right? And I have these things here that are related keywords that are helpful. I don't use it that often because a lot of times it's just what I could find on Google left and right. But yeah, you want to kind of see what the best in the business are doing. Right, let's go back to what HubSpot had. HubSpot, here we go. Right, you want to see what they have to offer, and you could take some ideas from them. Right, you could say, hey, what is content? Why is content creation important? We saw that on the Answer the Public, right? So you could take some of these stats. By the way, there's nothing special about these stats. It's not copywriting. Take that stat, you could add it to your blog post. So anyway, some research ideas, some things to think about. I think it's a lot of fun to do this stuff. I didn't used to. I had to learn how it was fun because it's just information. But yeah, that is my post for today. That is my live video. I appreciate you hanging out and watching. If you're somebody who's interested in more videos like this, feel free to let me know in the comments of this video. And since you're already here on YouTube, if you want to take me on the go and listen to my podcast where I talk about a lot of the same things that I'm talking about on YouTube, but just different context for different social media platforms and different platforms, make sure you go to the Part-Time Creator Podcast. Check that out. You can check it on Apple, Google, Anchor, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, it's probably there. And yeah, thanks a ton for watching. I will see you in the next video.